Before America became a nation, before its borders were drawn in blood and ink, there were people who did not fit the story history would later tell. They were not just African. They were not just native. They were both. And for that reason, they were erased. Long before European ships touched the shores of North America, the land was alive with nations, complex, organized, and deeply rooted in tradition. The Cherokee, the Creek, the Choctaw, and the Seminole. They farmed, they traded, they governed themselves. This was their world. But everything changed when outsiders arrived. With colonization came slavery. Millions of Africans were forced across the Atlantic, arriving in a land that promised nothing but suffering. But not all accepted that fate. Some ran into the forests, into the unknown, and into native lands. What they found there would change history. In the dense swamps of Florida, something remarkable happened. The Seminole people, already resisting European control, encountered escaped Africans. These weren't just strangers, they were survivors. Instead of turning them away, the Seminoles did something unexpected. They welcomed them, not as property, but as people. Families formed, languages blended, cultures merged. A new identity was born, the Black Seminoles. They built villages hidden deep in the swamps, places where soldiers feared to go. They farmed maize and rice. They raised livestock. They created systems of defense. Children grew up speaking multiple tongues, African dialects mixed with native languages. They were no longer fugitives, they were a community. But freedom would not go unchallenged. The United States wanted land, and slave owners wanted their property back. This collision sparked one of the longest conflicts in American history, the Seminole Wars. For decades, U.S. troops struggled against an enemy they could not control. Because this was not a conventional war. It was survival. Under leaders like Osceola, Seminole fighters and their black allies used the land as their weapon. At night, they moved silently through the swamps, water up to their knees, weapons held close. Then, they struck. Fast, precise, invisible, and just as quickly, they vanished. The U.S. military was outmatched, not in numbers, but in knowledge. Among the Black Seminoles rose a powerful leader, John Horse. He was not born into power. He earned it through courage, intelligence, and an unbreakable will to be free. When it became clear that staying meant capture or death, he made a decision that would change everything. He led his people south, not into another battlefield, but into freedom. The U.S. government forced thousands of native people, including Black Indians, off their land. This journey became known as the Trail of Tears. Men, women, children, walking for months, hungry, sick, exhausted. Many never made it, and among the dead were people whose stories would never be recorded. But some refused to surrender. Led by John Horse, groups of Black Seminoles crossed into Mexico, where slavery had been abolished. For the first time, they were truly free. They built settlements. They lived as warriors, farmers, families, beyond the reach of a nation that tried to claim them. But history is not just written by survivors. It is written by those in power. In the late 1800s, official records, like the Dawes Rolls, began categorizing people. You could be labeled Black or Native, but not both. This erased identity had consequences. Land was taken, rights were denied, histories were rewritten. An entire people, reduced to a category that never told their full story. Today, descendants of the Black Indians still exist. In Oklahoma, in Texas, in Mexico. Their traditions survive, in music, in stories, in memory. But their history remains largely untold. To simplify them, to divide them. But identity is not something you can erase with ink. It lives, in blood, in memory, in truth. And as long as their story is told, The Black Indians will never be forgotten. If you enjoy the story and want more stories like this, subscribe to the channel at Africa Folktales, Movies and Storytelling. If you enjoy the story and want more stories like this, subscribe to the channel at Africa Folktales, Movies and Storytelling.